Hey Baz, how do I set boundaries with staff or coworkers or team members? This is a tricky one. It's a tricky one because people get this wrong. They're either someone who doesn't mind conflict, which means they can be a little too aggressive and trample on people, and they tend to rub people the wrong way, or they're conflict averse and they don't like having those conversations in the first place, which then that's almost as bad because, or if anything, it's worse because that'll build up. Every time you let something slide, your brain will still lodge it as if you've had the conversation with them. And what'll generally happen is after about 5 or 6 times, you'll blow up at them, you'll go over the top, and then there'll be this big issue. And they'll be like, hey, dude, what happened? That's what happened. You avoided the conflict and then it came to a boil. So there are a lot of ways that you can handle conflict wrong. There's one way, and a really good way, that you can do it right. First thing is, you don't necessarily want to call it conflict or boundaries or tough conversations. If you give it a label that makes it sound scary, people will treat it scary. It'll be harder for you to get your head around. It's the same as, it's a funny joke where people talk about, people die in hurricanes all the time. And one of the reasons is because they give them such cute names. It's like, oh, Hurricane Mandy's coming to town. It's like, oh, she sounds nice, right? Call that thing Megadeth 5000 and people will evacuate their homes, right? So the nomenclature, what you name it, actually matters. And so I don't call it tough conversations or boundary setting or conflict or anything like that. I just call it agreements, because that's all you have to come to is an agreement. One of the biggest sources of problems, whether this is in your relationship or with your staff or whatever it might be, is we all have different rules for things. And we accidentally do a human bias called projection, where we assume that other people think like us, which they don't, because they have different experiences and habits and upbringings that make them value different things and feel different ways. We think they think like us, and so we think they have the same rules as us. But here's a really good example. Let's say a husband and a wife. The husband is a really messy person and the wife is a really clean person. Well, when the husband leaves his socks out of the dirty clothes hamper and leaves them on the floor, the wife will understandably get pissed off. That happens. And the more he does it, oh, sorry, babe. But she just assumes he knows that he's supposed to not do that. And even if she talks to him about it, she goes, honey, you need to please put it, oh, sorry, babe, whatever. But they have different rules because, and I'll flip the situation on its head, if the wife, as the clean person, let's say she's had a big day and she accidentally leaves her socks on the floor, which I know sounds crazy for clean people. So I could never do that. But imagine she did. Would the husband get mad? No, he doesn't care, because socks in the hamper is not a rule for him. It doesn't matter for him as much. A lot of the times when it comes to disciplining staff or handling conflict with team members or, making sure things are being done correctly, people have different rules. And so if you put your rules on them, you're naturally going to get angrier, but you're also not getting the buy-in from them to actually change the habit. Because if they don't understand or agree with the logic of doing it and don't understand how it's going to help them if they start doing the thing you need them to do, why would they do it? Because it's your idea to do it, not their idea to do it. When you get buy-in on the why, it becomes their idea to do it. So if you've got to have a conversation with someone, they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or you need to set a boundary of some sort, the first thing you want to do is get them in, have a conversation, keep it light, don't trip their defensive alarm, so don't do anything accusational. You don't be like, hey, you did this wrong. You sit down and go, hey, have you ever thought about why I asked you to do this? And spend some time getting them to agree with the logic of the why. Once you've got the why, now you can make an agreement with them about the behavior. And this is when a lot of people who don't have good follow-up don't really succeed very well. And a lot of the reasons this won't work is because people won't see this through. But there's 2 stages of this. So the first thing is, okay, so now you know that it's important. You agree that it's important. Can we make an agreement, a handshake agreement now, that you're going to put the effort into fixing this? And the biggest thing you need to understand as the person making the agreement is they are going to screw it up. Building habits is harder than people think. It takes more effort and more repetition. They're going to screw it up. And don't be mad when they screw it up. Understand they're going to screw it up a bit. But when they do screw it up, you reference the agreement, not the behavior. Because the behavior makes them defensive, the agreement makes them apologetic because they've broken their word. So if somebody, let's say you've got a staff member who gets complaints, and you say, hey, look, do you understand why we can't get these complaints? Do you understand, the importance of that? And then they accidentally, they're having a bad day or whatever, they do get a complaint. You bring them in again. You go, hey, do you remember we had a conversation about you doing X, Y, and Z to not get complaints? I go, yeah. What happened? Oh, and now they know I did it. It's not about what happened. It's about the agreement. You told me we would do this. You didn't stick to the agreement. And almost like 9 times out of 10, they'll actually apologize. If they don't, that's a narcissist and that's a bigger problem. That's someone you probably want to get rid of, even if they're a high performer. And so if I have that conversation, I make that agreement. Okay, but what happens when they screw it up? Now we attach a punishment. This is more appropriate if there's sort of an employer-employee or manager-employee relationship here, but this is the fun part. So what you'll do, rather than just making the same agreement, this time you attach a punishment. But it's not your idea to make the punishment, it's theirs. And so what I'll do is, okay, so we spoke about this again. Can you remind me why it's important? Do you remember all the reasons why it's important? Get agreement on the why again, and then make the agreement again so we can make sure this doesn't happen again. I knew, look, you were probably going to screw it up once. Let's not screw it up twice. This is really important. They go, okay, agreement. I go, but now you add the punishment. You go, okay, awesome. Now, what should happen if you don't do this? Or if you do this thing wrong again? What do you think should be a good consequence for that? And more often than not, they end up suggesting something way more full on or like draconian than what you would suggest. They'll say, well, you can fire me or whatever. And sometimes you've even got to talk them down. And you're like, no, well, let's call it this instead. Or I'll take some of your commissions from that day, or you'll have the day off or whatever it might be. And you go, is that a fair agreement? Great, shake hands and put it in writing. Message them. So just remember this, screenshot it, save it in your favorites. And then when they do it again, just send them the screenshot and then it's easier to follow through. That is how you set boundaries. I know this sounds convoluted. I bet it's a longer video than it really needs to be. The too long didn't read. Very, very simple. How do I get better at setting boundaries? Stop calling it boundaries, call it agreements, get buy-in on the why, make the agreement with them after they've got buy-in on the why. And if you need to follow up and do it again, get them to suggest the punishment. That is how you get good at pulling people up, even if you're close with them, even if you don't like conflict, even if you do like conflict. That is your one-size-fit-all way to set better boundaries. If you need more questions or anything you want answered, drop them in the comments, more clarification, go for it. And if you can give me a like or a subscribe, that'd be gangster. Happy hunting, everyone. Have a great day.